So how did I fall in love with craft beer? In my 20s, I moved to London, and this whole world of beer opened up to me. I had been drinking watery domestic beers in America for years and years, and I had no idea of the variety of flavors and styles of beer that I would find when I could go in a pub and they would be brewing their own beer in the basement. I could go to a small town and they had a microbrewery there and everybody's drinking their local beer. So I learned a lot about beer and I learned that I loved it. Then I was lucky enough to move to Colorado, where I was mentored by one of the craft beer pioneers, George Stranahan, who started the Flying Dog Brewery in Aspen, Colorado more than 20 years ago. And while I was working for his Educational Research Foundation, my desk was about 2 feet away from his for 2 years. And we spent a lot of time talking about beer and about craft beer and about this what was at that point very much the early days of the craft beer movement. And I also got to hang out in the Woody Creek Tavern while Hunter S. Thompson was at one end of the bar, was spouting about politics and various other things, and I got to drink Doggy Style Pale Ale and talk about beer. The hard part is writing to the niche that you think is going to sell. So what you need to do is kind of look at what's being done in other beer publications that's very local. Like I said, I do an amalgamation of news, and people seem to like that, but I do it with personality. It's not just pieces out of press releases. I mean, I kind of insert my own opinion. I talk about what I think is cool and interesting. I don't really review beers, but I get particularly excited about certain releases, and I get to go try them early and talk about them. And so I've got this. My column is basically, anywhere from 6 to 8 paragraphs that's all different information. It can be read really, really quickly. And people seem to love that and respond to that. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina 13 years ago when it was a one brewery town. And now we're Beer City, USA. We have gone from 1 microbrew to 9 in the city, 13 in the region, and there are more on the way. And as a freelance journalist, I have gotten to cover a lot of this emerging beer scene. I write a bi-weekly beer news column for the Alt Weekly newspaper where I cover new releases, I talk about craft beer, I talk about events, and that's been really fun and exciting. Hey, I'm Ann Fitton-Glenn, and we are here with Brews News Live. I'm here with Paul Rollo, one of the brewers at Highland Brewing Company, and we're going to talk a little bit about this year's Cold Mountain Winter Ale, which I am drinking, and it is yummy, although it is not available here at the Highland Tasting Room until November 12th. So Democratic Craft Brewing processes here for this year's Cold Mountain Winter Ale, which I think is one of the best ever. And I also started a blog called Brewgasm, and that was just so I could write about the emerging beer scene throughout the country and the world, really. I mean, America is finally catching up to Europe. We now have 1,500 craft breweries as opposed to less than 70 just about 20 years ago. So it's an exciting time for beer. It's an exciting time for women in beer. Women are getting much more intrigued with beer. They're learning that there are a lot of varieties of flavor and styles. And it's also a good economic choice. I mean, it's a lot cheaper to drink a beer, even a craft beer, than it is to have a glass of wine or a mixed drink. We've learned that calories are not as much an issue anymore, that we can have 1 or 2 good beers and not maybe skip dessert, but not ruin our caloric intake for the day. And there are bunches of women's beer clubs popping up around the country, and I just really want to teach and learn more about beer, particularly in regards to women. So that's one reason I started Brewgasm.